Forget spreadsheets and tax codes. Our guest today is redefining accountant with a capital A. This powerhouse leader isn't just North American president of a quick fee. She's a 25-year veteran who built her own firm from the ground up, spent a decade scaling giants like Sage, and still finds time to open her heart and home as a foster parent. But her most famous impressive accolade is not the balance sheet. It's the quick fee employee net promoter score above 60. And that's not just happy employees. That's a family built on purpose, passion, and maybe a little bit of laughter over accidentally expensing that office beanbag chair. Prepare to ditch the beige and embrace the bold as we unlock the secrets of building a company where numbers sing, hearts soar, and success is measured in profit and impact. Buckle up, because our guest is about to show you why the future of accounting is anything but black and white. Jennifer Warawa, let us go right out of the gate and say, digital transformation in accounting firms. Why is it taking so long? What's the problem? Why are we still talking about it?
Oh my gosh, I think that's such a big question. When I look back at how long I've been in the accounting profession for, and I think about hot topics at conferences or with firms a decade ago or 15 years ago or 20 years ago, a lot of the conversation has not changed. It's still the same. And so when you go to a conference, you're seeing the widening of the gap on where firms are at in their digital transformation journey. You still have firms that are struggling with going paperless or going digital, and then you have other firms that have embraced ChatGPT and they have a whole digital strategy, and that gap to me is widening greater than it ever has before. But I think firms are just reluctant to change. I think it's hard change to make, and it's as fast as they're changing, the environment is changing. So they've never quite arrived. They haven't checked the box, and the whole environment has moved on and technology's moved on. So I think it's going to be important or relevant for a long time. But when I talk about digital transformation, sometimes firms are like, are we still talking about that? And then when you get into it, they're like, oh my gosh, I still need to talk about that. So it's an interesting subject.
There's a mismatch, isn't there? The technology world moves so fast. If you just take Silicon Valley as a place, and we get this impression of a hotbed of innovation, and we can't separate the accounting world from the technology world. They drive each other. But accounting has been ever thus checks and balances, double entry bookkeeping. It's been like that for centuries. So it's glacial in its approach, in its innovation. But you bolt that to a tech industry that moves so fast. Maybe we're
Mhm.
getting to the heart of why digital transformation is so slow, because they're worlds apart.
They are worlds apart. No, that's exactly right. And I think, at the heart of accounting, it's always, the income statement and the trial balance, the balance, all those things and debits and credits is, that doesn't change, but the whole profession is changing around, a lot of those processes to get to financial statements or tax returns are being automated, and the firm is being looked to add greater value. The accountant is being looked at to add greater value and not do those repetitive tasks in the same way they have been before. And it's a huge shift. It's an uncomfortable place for accountants to be. They're trying to predict the future and they're used to reporting the past, and that's challenging.
You talk about the gap there between the good and the great firms. Let's redefine that gap as the gap between the firms that will succeed and survive and the firms that will become irrelevant and die or get bought up. Is that a good way of looking at it?
Yeah, I think survival of the fittest is a great way to describe it. I think that firms, the time is slowly coming to a close where firms can just maintain the status quo and keep doing things the way they've always done them and still be successful and thrive. Like they're having a difficult time retaining talent. They are having a difficult time attracting talent. And so, you look at the overall firm and they struggle to continue to be successful. And I think that's going to get harder and harder as time goes on.
Mm. What is stopping the individual accountant from changing? I read a stat recently, I think via Zero, that said that 37% of CPAs in the US, and I'm sure it's very similar in the UK and other places, only 37% are automating, connecting a bank feed.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Which means 63% are not. And you think, well, how many are still in spreadsheets and how many are still writing checks? and things like that. So is it the individual accountants that are just so comfortable in what they're doing? Because if they can't embrace bank automation, what hope is there for, say, AI?
Absolutely. Well, interestingly, when you ask firms about why they are where they are on their digital transformation journey, quite often they point to somebody else in the firm. So it's not their fault, it's somebody else. So it's like
Right.
Bob doesn't want to change, or Jill, Jill just doesn't want to make the leap to digital. We're just, that's one big thing that we hear, is it's someone else in the firm that's holding on to the past. It's not them, it's somebody else. The other one is we get a lot is, my clients aren't asking for it and they're happy with the way that things are. And I know from decades of doing roundtables or focus groups with clients of accounting firms, when you actually talk to them and ask about their satisfaction level of the firm that they're working with, they say, yeah, they'll meet my needs, they file my taxes, I guess I'm compliant. But at the end of the day, do I feel like they really add value? No, and that's the part that's missing. And so they seem to be happy until they find a firm or an accountant that can add more value than what they're getting today, and then they'll leave. And so I think that is a little bit of a, it's a little bit of a gray area, or a little bit of an excuse, which is my clients aren't asking for it, but they are looking for it and they're hearing about it and they will leave for it.
When we talk about digital transformation, is a problem with the word transformation because it implies something that's overnight or something that's cataclysmic or something that's huge in its scope. But really, digital evolution, digital gradual change. I know it's not as sexy, but would that make the accounting types feel a little bit more comfortable?
Yeah, I think it probably would. I like that. I'm going to take that, Rob. I'm going
But
to
does it
use
need to
that.
be a transformation,
Well,
given how
yeah,
slow we move?
yeah, I mean, you can call it something different. It's still, I mean, it is what it is. But you're right, it is an evolution, overall, of business processes and people and the way that they work and the value that they deliver. It does seem, transformation is a big word and it seems like a big undertaking. I think the part for firms to remember is it's never done. It's not a project where you have these 82 items that need to be completed and then it's checked off. So I think it's an ongoing journey. It's a digital journey of sorts, or a digital evolution journey, but it never ends and it always needs evolving. But you're right, maybe the word could be less scary and people might be a little more okay with it.
If there is hope for a digital transformation in accounting, it must come through the next generation who are more tech savvy, mobile phone friendly than ever before. They've grown up with the internet
Mhm.
as opposed to the baby boomers that inherited it, if you like. Does that give you any hope for a digital transformation in accounting?
It does. I mean, I think that the challenge right now is the next generation is going to work at existing firms. And when they get there and they realize in many cases the technology is so far behind, they want to leave. And we've had lots of conversations with next generation accountants or newer to the accounting profession that are looking for their next career move, and they've barely been at this firm for, 6 months or a year. And so, yes, they can drive digital transformation, but not if a firm is not open to hearing what that next generation has to say. In many firms, what we hear is, hey, they have to earn their stripes the way that I did. They have to move up the ranks the way I did. And once they have some experience, we'll listen to what they're saying. And the reality is they need to listen today because they have great advice and they have a different perspective that has value. Do they have the same experience? No, they'll need to get it, but they do have a perspective that will deliver a lot of value, particularly as it relates to digital transformation.
Mm. I wonder who's steering the bus of digital transformation. You with Quick Fee, the vendors, the tech providers, maybe dragging accountants kicking and screaming. I'm being a little bit emotive, but there are some very innovative accountants, maybe individuals or those within smaller firms where they can be an ambassador of the brand and lead the way. They might be driving the bus. Who do you sense is in charge?
Oh my gosh, that's a loaded question. Uh,
Yeah, you're
who
good
who
for a
is
loaded answer, Jennifer.
Yeah, who is in charge? I mean, I think that any change journey or any transformation journey is easier when somebody is along the journey for the right reasons and they're embracing what's next. I think dragging anyone in, you have to drag them along, and that's always just painful. I think that probably across the vendor community as well as accounting firms, the competitive landscape is driving, it probably is fueling the digital transformation more than anything else, because firms are going to conferences or they're listening to podcasts and they're hearing about what other firms are doing. And they're like, it's a little bit of FOMO, the fear of missing out. They're like, wait a minute, they're doing that. We haven't even started to look at that. And they start to see and sense the disruption. And it drives a lot. We had an interesting conversation about Chat GPT use cases at the Digital CPA conference. We had to break out into little roundtable groups. And at my table, I had some people who had never used Chat GPT and other people who were using it for almost everything. And so the people who had never used it are like taking notes, like, oh my gosh, I better catch up because here are my peers using it in practical ways that I could be using it. So I'd say that competitive environment is probably one of the key drivers to driving change right now in the accounting profession.
Hmm. Let's take a step outwards, if you like. You've attended a lot of in-person events over the last year, Jennifer. In your new role, you talked to a lot of accounting firms, a lot of your peers. What are some of the things you've learned from the key discussion topics?
Yeah, I think, when you talk to firms, I like to understand what their digital transformation journey looks like. Like I like to understand what the roadmap looks like. One, selfishly, I'm trying to figure out how we fit into it, but also just to understand where they're at. And in some cases, they're referring to or pointing back to a digital transformation plan that was built 10 years ago. So we had this plan, we had a multi-year plan, and we've stayed the course, and they're very proud of staying the course. They're very proud that, we said we were going to do this and we're doing it. But at the end of the day, technology hasn't stayed the course. And so there's new entrants to the market, technology is evolving, the competitive landscape is changing. And so while I'm a huge advocate for a roadmap or a plan, I think it needs to be revisited regularly and account for unforeseen changes in the market. And that's happening all the time. So I just, that comes up more often than not around having an evergreen roadmap or plan versus a set it and forget it strategy, because it's just that set it and forget it. Sometimes the roadmap is only good for a couple months and you're like, wow, I didn't see that coming. Now we need to pivot again.
Mm. If there was a recipe, I'm not sure if you're a cook or a chef or a baker, but if there was a recipe for a good digital transformation roadmap for an accounting firm, what would be some of the ingredients or the key components if you want to equate it to an engine or something?
Well, I think that the digital transformation strategy, one part of the recipe is, you need someone that is owning it and
A
driving.
champion. Yeah.
Yeah, but everyone needs to be engaged and involved. It's just like brand in a firm. The marketing department is not responsible for all of the brand or building brand awareness. That's everybody's job. It's the same with digital transformation. And, when I deliver a session at an event and I'll say, who in this room is responsible for the digital transformation at your firm? Sometimes no one's hand goes up. And you're like, okay, the answer was all of you, but that's different. So I think part of the recipe is someone owns it and is accountable, so it's part of their day job is moving things forward. It's not on the side of someone's desk.
Yeah.
I think having everybody in the firm understanding what their role is in digital transformation is important. It's not just for one person to go and do as their day job. It's for everybody to embrace. I think having a good change management process is important. I think that it is a lot of change, and it can be challenging to navigate, and it has cultural implications. It has implications on how satisfied people are in their roles. I mean, there's just a lot of trickle-on effect from that change or that level of change. So keeping an eye on that is an important part of the recipe. And I think being willing to pivot and being willing to change. I don't know in a recipe. Sometimes I do that. Most of the time I try not to, but my husband's very good at it. He just, he'll just throw things in. I'm like, are you measuring anything? But I think it's just, you have to be willing sometimes to say, okay, I don't know exactly what the recipe is, but we're going to build this plan or this roadmap, and we're going to revisit it or look at it at least every month to say, what's changed in the market? Because if you think about it, if you set your strategy 18 months ago, Chat GPT didn't even exist. And now it's changed a lot for many firms. So I think those are some critical elements. And I think, I guess it goes a little bit without saying, but the the willingness to adopt new technology and do things differently than you've done before. I think digital transformation is dependent on your ability or willingness to do things differently. And some firms and some individuals are not willing to go there. They don't want to go there.
Well, doing things willingly when it comes to change, that's all very well. However, accountants by nature, and I'm putting them in a bucket now, a stereotype, but they're all about risk. They're risk
Absolutely.
averse. They're
Abs-
mitigators of risk. They're risk managers, and they're brilliant at that.
Yeah.
So when it comes to embracing change or investing in technologies, I've got to ask you, how good are accounting types at buying technology and making good strategic decisions in technology, in fitting it into the firm, getting it not just to serve their employees, but their clients as well? They must be big factors.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're seeing an increase in the number of firms that are joining alliances, like the BDO Alliance is a good example. We met with a firm recently who was looking at adopting our technology, and we said, okay, well, let us talk to you about what we do. And he said, oh, I already know what you do. And he said, here's the deal. Our firm is part of the BDO Alliance because we need someone that all day is thinking about the technology that we need to have in our firm and how we're going to move forward. The BDO Alliance does that for us. So when they set the stage, we know it's already been vetted. And so I think they're looking to say, I might not have all the internal resources to vet all the technology or determine which of these 12 solutions that all do the same thing, which one's going to be the best. So I need to look to someone who has more resources than me to help be that compass a little bit. And so we're certainly seeing a lot more of that. I think the role of a CTO or someone in your technology team is becoming increasingly important. Having somebody that understands the security, compliance, data privacy, everything that goes along with all the different ways that you can use data now is so critical. And so maybe previously that role wasn't as important in a firm as it is today, but having someone who understands all of that data privacy security helps other partners in the firm feel comfortable with adopting technology because they know that's the part that's being looked after. It helps them feel like they're mitigating risk.
What advice would you give to individual accountants out there that do want to be agents of change? They do want to be champions. They're trying to drive change in what might be a traditional firm or an ageist firm, or I'm not perhaps putting that very politely, but they feel like they're banging their head against a wall in modernizing the firm.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think I don't want to say you should leave your job. No,
Leave
that's
right
what I,
now. Go,
leave
get
right
out
now.
quick.
Don't
Don't
even
look
wait for
back.
this. Yeah, don't keep listening to this podcast. Just hang up and leave your job. No, I don't want to say that. But, I think at some point, I mean, I think that your overall satisfaction at where you work and in your career is dependent on the value you can contribute and how you're having an impact. And when you are in a situation or in a firm or in a company where you feel like you have so much to contribute, but your ideas are not being listened to or recognized, or they're kind of they're going in a different direction as it relates to technology. They don't want to make the change, and you are an advocate of change. I would say you can only do that for so long before your mental well-being is suffering. I think that your overall satisfaction will go down. So I encourage people, there are firms out there that are doing some great things with technology, or firms that are behind that are looking for change agents to figure out, how do we close the gap between ourselves and our nearest competitor? Like, how do we really move the needle as it relates to digital transformation? Those firms would find so much value in someone to come in and help drive that change. So I think there's a lot of places to add value, and don't be stuck where you are if they're not willing to change.
And Jennifer, how are you and Quick Fee changing the game for the better for accountants? What's the role you're playing?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. Number one is around automation. I think that, when you think about practical applications for AI or ChatGPT or robotic process automation, when you think about all of these emerging technologies, they lead to automation of low value activities that accountants were doing. I remember talking to someone at an event, and you know, everyone always says, oh, technology is going to take my job. She said, I remember when I first became a CPA, I used to spend the majority of my day photocopying documents.
Hmm.
So she said, when you told me that technology was going to take my job, I was the happiest person there was, because I couldn't even believe that I went to school to photocopy documents. And so I think there's such an opportunity for us to help automate like in our case, the build to cash workflow, but there's a lot of low value activities inside a firm that can be automated. I think the second piece for us is we want to give businesses and accountants access to cash. It is a challenging economy. There's a lot of uncertainty, and people want to hold on to their cash as long as they can. So through our financing product, we want to help firms be able to free up cash for their clients and in their own business.
Final question, Jennifer. Let's get that crystal ball out. As we approach the horizon of 2024, and this show will go out early in 2024, what should accounting firms be prioritizing in their digital transformation journey? Give us some kind of visionary perspective on the road ahead.
Yeah, I would, if I'm thinking about digital transformation and what I'd be prioritizing and what we're prioritizing inside our own company, not what we're building for our customers,
Yeah.
but what we're actually doing on our own internal processes, is I would say sometimes people are like, it seems so big when they're thinking about Chat GPT and something so, they're like, I don't even know how that's gonna affect my firm. It's just too big. I can't even get there. But where they can get to is automation. And so what we're doing is we're looking at every process inside our business saying, is there a way that we can automate that process so we're more efficient and effective? So, and I think that's digestible for accounting firms, for them to say, okay, if I just look at this with a clean sheet of paper and I say, what's manageable this year? It's around what can I automate? And that's probably where I would start, and that's where I would focus. And I think it can have a significant impact not only on the firm, but on employee satisfaction. If it can be automated, the person doing it probably isn't having fun doing it. It's like the photocopying, right? Like they're standing a photocopier. That's not what they went to school for. So if you can automate it, automate it. And I think that's digestible and manageable for firms.
What excites you most for the next year or two in this game?
Oh, I'm hopeful. You know, we talk about how things haven't changed as, you know, as much as we'd like them to, or as much as we would have expected. I'm excited about the firms that are changing. I'm excited that we're at roundtables talking about what's been automated inside firms and with accountants. I'm excited that conversations that were happening, you know, occasionally are happening regularly and are part of the mainstream conversation. So I think that this is a pivotal year for a lot of firms. They need to determine, are they making the change, or are they, like we talked about, are they going to, you know, die by the wayside? And so I think it's going to be a really important pivotal year for a lot of companies and a lot of firms. So I'm excited. That excites me because I think it's time for people to make some tough decisions, and I think there's a lot of opportunities that relates to efficiency, automation, and technology, which makes it exciting.
World class. Jennifer Warawa, thank you.
Thank you very much, Rob. I enjoyed the conversation.